can Patrick Mahomes lead the Chiefs over the Raiders this weekend, despite the amount of offensive inconsistency that we've seen from Kansas City so far this year?
I don't know. There are games like last week where you look at this team and you say, how do you only score 13 points against a team that was without Aaron Rodgers? There are games like the Washington game, like where they just turn it on in a half. And then there's games like the Giants game where they're playing good, but then they have some bad drives, but then they go down the field and score at will. Kansas City has probably been one of the most inconsistent teams all year. And that is something I never thought I would be saying in this Patrick Mahomes era of his prime. And obviously, with the addition of Josh Gordon, which me and Kyle both said was kind of pointless. The man hasn't really played much meaningful football in a little bit. So he's not even getting any relevant targets. So I'm just looking at this and I'm looking at this roster and I'm saying, well, you know what? They have Pat Mahomes, but are you going to get the Pat Mahomes that has to force the ball 3 or 4 times down the field at risking the 2 or 3 turnovers? Are you going to get the Pat Mahomes that is analyzing and breaking down defenses with his ability to stretch the field? Or are you just going to get lights out MVP Pat Mahomes? You know what I'm saying? Like, he legitimately has like 3 faces this season. And it's just like, it's really too much of a toss up for me to even say because you look at the Raiders and you think, well, they're not that good, but then they have games like they did 2 weeks ago where Derek Carr goes for like 3 tuts and then freaking Ngakwe has like 2.5 sacks with a strip fumble. So you're like, well, the defense is playing solid and the offense is playing good, and I think that this team can compete. But then they lose to the Giants last week. So once again, both teams inconsistent. It's really hard for me to pick who I think is going to win. But if I had to put a nail on it, I would probably just lean toward the Chiefs just because of Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because when I look at Patrick Mahomes, this is by far his most turnover prone season that we've ever seen from him. Just because he seems to me like he's playing hero ball. And that's not to discredit him whatsoever. It's because offensively as a unit, this team has really struggled. The offensive line has failed to protect Patrick because he's already been sacked over a dozen times this season and is on pace to be sacked the most amount of times in one single season so far. And then you go along with the fact that I think NFL defenses have finally figured out how to contain this Chiefs offense. And what it essentially accounts for is just putting 2 safeties deep, possibly 25, 30 yards, and taking the home run play away from that Chiefs offense, which Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs have feasted on for the last couple years with Tyreek Hill, Demarcus Robinson, and McCole Hardman. So Kansas City has to make an adjustment to that. They got to focus on these short and intermediate routes because those safeties are not allowing anything behind them. And this is where I think Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid, they have to kind of make that adjustment. It's like, okay, well, we're going to focus on some 5 to 10, 15-yard routes instead of working on these routes that take 20 to 25 yards down the field to be able to make, but it takes 3 or 4 seconds for those to develop. So I would like to see like Tyreek Hill get involved in the passing game more as far as like short intermediate routes go. Travis Kelce, if he can find some soft spots in the zone against the Raiders, I think that can definitely work, but I definitely want to see Patrick not turn the ball over. Now, granted, he did not turn the ball over against the Packers last week. That was like the first game in over a month where he was able to do that. There was a big stretch where he had multiple turnovers in a row, as far as like in the games that he was playing from like week 3 to like week 8, where he was turning the ball over multiple times. And, you know, I guess last week you could say it was a step in the right direction, but I do think that the Raiders, they're going to play some solid defense against Pat, and I think they're going to put him into some situations where, you know, you're going to have to fit some balls into some tight windows and better hope that he could thread the needle, because he has been off with his accuracy this year just because he has been turning the ball over. So I think as a whole, this is a really tough pick for me because I think I want to say Kansas City, and I'm going to go with them just because they got Patrick Mahomes at the helm. And I think the only reason why I'm going with them is because of that and the Raiders and the amount of off-season issues that they've been dealing with this entire year. It started with John Gruden resigning. Then you had Henry Ruggs with his DUI situation. Now you got Damon Arnett with the situation where he was posting guns on Instagram that led to his release. And I think it's getting to the point where think that the Raiders are just consumed by the amount of off the field issues that they've been having. And I just don't think that this team is going to be able to get back into form against Kansas City this week. It was kind of a surprise loss that they had against the Giants last week, but for this week, I just don't think that the Raiders are going to get it done, and I'm going to favor the Chiefs in the one. I'm going to favor the Chiefs in this one, but I think it's going to be relatively close. I think the Chiefs only win this game by like 3 or 4 points. I think it's like, 24-21, like somewhere in that margin.